suffering, he was lost. He couldn't find his way out of his own rabbit hole. My hand was there at the top of that hole, he just needed to choose to grab it. This is Randy. I was blessed with 3 sons, Randy being the youngest. At the age of 14, he broke his arm in high school playing volleyball in gym class. It was so badly broken, it needed surgery, needed pins, needed screws. Afterwards, he was given opiate painkillers. This began his experimenting with drugs. It was a shock to us and a whole new challenge for his father and I, as our older 2 sons never ever experimented with drugs. We pulled out all the stops and we were determined to nip it in the bud. We spent every last penny we had and then some getting help for our son. Our first attempt was a wilderness camp at age 14, and then over the years we had him in 2 or 3 different rehab programs. He missed his high school graduation because he was in rehab in Florida. I received his diploma in the mail. He didn't get to walk across the stage and receive his diploma full of pride like his older 2 brothers had done a few years prior. I had him put on his cap and gown for this picture when he returned home a month after his class graduated without him. Each time he returned home from rehab, he was full of hope and aspirations of what he wanted to do with his life. But relapse is a big part of addiction, and unfortunately, he was no stranger to this. He was in and out of rehab a few times. Randy's final trip to rehab was a bit different in that it finally seemed to click. He really applied himself 100%, and he finally got it. On one of my visits to see him, I flew to Florida. I sat in an office with him and his therapist, and he read me a letter that he had written while he was in rehab. He read aloud, he cried, I cried. I was ecstatic. He had finally reached out of that rabbit hole and grabbed a helping hand. His letter explained how drugs had affected his life negatively. This was the eye-opening experience that I had been waiting for years. I'd like to share part of his letter with you so that you can get a look at addiction from the other viewpoint through the eyes of a young man struggling to break addiction. So here is part of his letter.
My life has been in a spiritual void in the sense that I have become obsessed with using drugs that alter my mind. I became oblivious to the fact that they were impacting my life negatively. I preferred the feeling they gave me over my own success and well-being. I highly respect other people and churn with the desire from the inside out to help them, but I lack the self-respect to act on it because of how self-centered I've truly been up until this point. I lay here knowing that I have nothing to my name other than debts to pay off and my life experience. I have a loving family to go back to who for some reason continues to look out for my best interest because I failed to do so over and over again. Compulsively, I have acted out on my addiction despite the constant negative consequences I face. It's clear to me that I am not the only one who suffers from where my fate has landed me. The pain I impose on my family because I have put drugs first on my list of priorities instead of wanting to give back to them is a pity. I refuse to wallow in that knowledge because I know I have what it takes to turn my life around. I have been striving to become the best version of me that I possibly can be, and I feel as if I have finally landed in the right place at the right time. My life is in shambles, and I wonder whether or not I'll end up in jail after this, but I just keep telling myself to live for today. When a person can realize their addiction, like I am realizing my own, it becomes clear that I have blamed every single negative consequence I have faced on society or society's rules, or my parents' rules, when really the problem was me all along. I have empty pockets and the power to do nothing except conjure up the willingness to change. Finding sober friends and only hanging out with them has failed me over and over again. Being alone in my room and cutting all ties except my family hasn't worked. It's so obvious to me that my addiction is more powerful than I am and that I need to do something about it. In the past, I would have always reverted back to my old ways at such a startling pace that it's scary to think about. I would have never guessed in a million years that it would be me with this problem. I am willing to do literally anything and everything it takes to stay sober. I am an extremely motivated person, and I have to put that motivation in the right place. I think it's easy for an addict to be steered toward the wrong direction, which makes me realize what AA and NA is all about. I now realize that I need direction. I know that living for today is really my only option. At least I know that when I make it through today, I will have another one checked off, free of losing my freedom, self-respect, well-being, or even my life. I have so much hope for myself, and I am without a doubt whatsoever that I can do whatever it takes, and I'm putting 100% of my trust in this process, with the knowledge that there are others out there who have done this and can show me the way. I've tried way too many times to think myself into a better situation, and here I am again in rehab. This time I'm doing my best to actually do something rather than just go through the motions. I'm doing my best to look at my life and find where I'm missing fresh perspective. It's clear that sponsorship is a mandatory step in recovery. Obviously, we addicts can easily lose sight of reality if the wrong things surround us. I'm sure we have all become familiar with the phrase that hindsight is 20/20.
Well, you can all hear how intelligent Randy is and what an enlightening experience this rehab program was for him. However, as I stated prior, relapse is a big part of addiction. Approximately 1 year after he wrote this letter, and 1 year after his eye-opening revelation of the damage that drugs had done to his life, I went into his bedroom to wake him up one morning and found him crumpled in a corner, lifeless, blue, and cold to the touch. It was 17 days after his 22nd birthday. The demon of addiction has taken my son from me forever. I shared his letter, hoping that people would hear and understand that, yes, my son got it. He clearly saw the damage that drugs had done to his life. He was so intelligent, yet he just couldn't stay away. You just heard his own words. He said, "I had never thought in a million years it would be me with this problem." No matter how many times he was warned what drugs could do to him, he never thought it would happen to him, but it did. My son was just like all of you, a student in high school, walking the halls, worked at the local pizza shop after school. He went to football games. He enjoyed going to school dances with friends, hanging out in Dunkin' Donuts, drinking coffee. Addiction can happen to anyone who has taken a sip, a puff, a snort, or even a pill that your doctor prescribed for pain. When addiction scooped up my child, it did so indiscriminately. Randy, at his core, was a great person. Everyone loved him. He had a lot of close friends. He was respectful, and he was polite. I only wish he could have understood the chance he was taking before the worst happened. People begin using drugs for many different reasons: peer pressure, boredom. Please know that any and all substances that you play with are scary to play with. Please don't think, oh, it's just marijuana, or I'm just going to try it once. Because no addiction is better than the other, and no one should ever waste their time or life trying any drug, because you will not stay in control. If willpower or the love of family could cure addiction, my son and all the other addicts would be happy and healthy. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Addiction is an illness. It's a disease. The definition of addiction is a chronic, relapsing brain disease that changes the structure and functionality of the brain. It's not a character flaw, it's a disease. If you have yet to try getting high, don't do it. Addiction happens because a renegade sip, snort, or sniff crosses an invisible line between want and need. When you take that first try, you never imagine that you may be taking the first steps in a journey that will lead you to a life of pain, despair, shame, and hopelessness. If addicts had just a moment to fully experience the darkness of addiction before they ever got started, they would never pick it up. Life can't be that boring that you're willing to fill your body with poison, not knowing if it's the last thing you'll ever do. Life itself has so many blessings you will miss out on. My son had plans. He had just taken an entrance exam to college. He had just started a new job. He wanted to get married and be a father someday. He tried so hard to kick his addiction, but by then, it was too late. Please remember, it's not just you who loses when you lose this fight. I'm left without my son. His brothers are heartbroken at the loss of their youngest brother. Our lives will never be the same. I can never be as happy as I once was. I know that Randy would be so upset if he could see what his drug use has done to all of our family. Using drugs not only affects the user, but everyone around them. You don't just ruin your own life, you ruin the lives of every person who loves you. I'm sure none of you want your mom up here speaking about you this way. I'm here speaking to you today because I'm hoping that hearing Randy's story will help you understand how dangerous drugs are. You have your whole life ahead of you, and life has so much to offer. Trying to be the cool kid at the party just isn't worth it. You're still young and you have serious decisions to make in your life. What you choose today will decide what you become tomorrow. As my very gifted 22-year-old son pointed out in his letter, hindsight is 20/20. I know he would change the choices he made if he had the chance. Your life now is in your hands. Thank you.